What do I want to talk about? If I were on a date, this is my date with myself. But you're watching it, so is it really a date with myself? I'm not really. It doesn't feel very private. I'm on a public date with myself. How do I look? Yes, I like to look pretty. If you can't tell. Uh, the glasses may not be best for a date. I don't think the glasses are a good idea for a date, really. I actually like the way the glasses make me look. I just feel like dates are about intimacy and glasses are just the kind of uh, like another piece of clothing almost. They don't cover much, but they do kind of create a just that extra bit of like looking at myself now. I just want to take these off. Like if I think about like kissing myself or whatever, or going to second base, I'm like, yeah, you need to take the glasses off. But the thing is, I have bad eyesight, and I've right now I feel like I look kind of funny without them on. Uh, I'm not wearing any makeup on my date. I don't know. So there is a worthwhile question of whether I want to date. Am I on a date with a man or a woman? I know I said I'm on a date with myself. So that is kind of the question, isn't it? Am I on a date with a man or a woman? Uh, am I on a date with a trans? I'm on a date with a trans, I would say for sure. Right now, would I date a trans person who wasn't me? I think so, especially if they look like me. I I just took an estrogen pill. It was my fourth for the day, which was my extra. Actually, my prescription doesn't say. I have not talked to my endocrinologist, who originally prescribed me two per day, and then the last time I was at his office, he agreed to up my dosage. But when I got my refill, it had the same dosage as the first bottle that I had. And I don't know if he forgot to up my dose or what. So I just started taking three per day on my own, and I keep forgetting to send him a message just to double check and make sure that if he forgot or whatever, if he needs to send me a new, just inform me what he meant. Did he mean that I should go up to three per day, four per day, five per day? I don't know. Uh, but he did agree that it should go up, and I can only go up by one. I mean, I can't do. I could do a partial pill, but that would be quite a nuisance. But so I have to go up at least by one, I would say. And so two to three, I feel like it's not a danger. If he agrees that I should up my dose, I think three is safe. Uh, so, but today I took four, and I just took my fourth because it is 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm on a date with myself at 3 o'clock in the morning, and usually I take my last one around 8 or 9 p.m. So because I'm up so late, I just figured why not take another one. So I'm on a date with myself. What would I ask myself, or what would I I think the first question you ask somebody on a date, I don't know, is I think if I were to take a survey of Americans and say, what's the first question you ask on a date? I would probably say it's something along the lines of, what do you dream to do with your life? And I would say, first of all, that is I don't want to say not a hard question to answer, but if you had asked me that question 15, 10, even five, not 5, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, I would never have said that I want to be taking hormones. That's not something that I would have said. And so to answer that question, I would kind of say my dream is to discover myself, to discover the treasure that is inside me. Because I don't really have like a real fantasy of how I see my life. Like, I don't see myself with a wife and kids, or a husband and kids, or I'm not like a botanist who travels to jungles and wears a hat like Indiana Jones, and has really cool glasses, not these dollar store glasses. Yeah, so maybe there's a part of me that wants to be that, because otherwise, why would I have just said it? Where did that come from? This thing that I just kind of made up. Is that something that is that a latent fantasy that I have? I don't know. That's why I say that my dream is to discover myself, my inner treasure. Why did I just feel? What was that just happened? That feeling of shame. I think it partly came from the thought that my family might actually watch this video. And I kind of felt like a little bit like a weirdo. When I look at myself like right now in the camera, I think that I would like to see myself with breasts and a decent woman's butt, nice legs, a waist, kind of a sexy waist that, people want to put their hands on. That sounds nice. I don't really fantasize about having children. That does not really appeal to me, and I would say that's partly because I see most adults as children who need a mother. Even some older people, maybe 50 or 60 years old, I think they never got the parenting they needed. I'm not going to say that I am that person, but I would say that I do fantasize about being that person. One of the things that made me depressed throughout my life was that I could not show people the way. When I was young, I'm trying to be careful about how I say this. When I look back to like my earliest memories, I've always had at least one brother, but he was always there. That one, he is my only full-blooded sibling, And I do mean that we are the only two that have the same mother and the same father. And my dad did get divorced from my mother. He left when I was 3 years old and married a new woman. Married a new woman? That sounds strange, doesn't it? It's not like she was just made. And he met another woman. They got married and had 2 kids. They had one when I was sent to live with him. And maybe one day I'll go into the story of why I was sent to live with him. But I was sent to live with him. My previous brother was sent later, so there was 3 boys there. And then we moved to China Grove from Charlotte. I was sent to live with him in Charlotte in a trailer park. And there was a drive-by shooting in the trailer park, so we were not there long. We moved to China Grove, out into the country, away from potential drive-by shootings, I suppose was the reason for that. And shortly thereafter, that I got my 3rd brother. My father now has 4 boys. Then had 4 boys. Actually, he didn't have anything after that. But especially with the first, the one who was my full-blooded brother, I would say that there was always a kind of, because I was the oldest, I don't want to say it's because of that, but being the oldest, I certainly felt like it was my responsibility to kind of lead the way. And I was so lost that I didn't even try. I've always been a kind of live and let live. I don't like when people try to dominate me and run my life, and for that reason, I don't do it to other people. It's not just for that reason, but it's also because I see myself as being lost, and I think it's a bad idea for me to try to tell people what they should be doing, because I don't know what I should be doing. But it was quite depressing. I didn't like sit around thinking that I'm, about it. I wasn't obsessed about it, but it was one of those things that it kind of hurt because it was like I want to help my younger brother. I want to be, and when I say help him, it wasn't like he needed help necessarily, but it was kind of like I don't know. I felt like that was kind of my responsibility in a way, and I couldn't live up to it. Like I said, this wasn't like something that I like sat around thinking about necessarily. But when I look back, I do feel a certain kind of like, when I feel like worthless and inadequate, that I would say that adds to it. That not being able to show people the way, not being the older brother that I kind of wish that I had. So hopefully that wasn't too depressing for a first date response. Is this my first date with myself? In a kind of like official way, it is. I think I've been on several dates with myself, but it wasn't officially a date because I wasn't thinking to myself, I'm taking myself on a date, but today I'm thinking that to myself that because I suggested it to somebody else. And I thought I should take my own advice. There was a girl on Facebook I know, only through Facebook, who was saying something about being lonely. And I suggested that if you want to not be as lonely, that you should take yourself on a date, get to know yourself, and find out what you like. And we're on a date, so I think I'm pretty. I think sometimes when I look at myself, I think I would date myself if I were someone else. Like if I were to look at myself from someone else's eyes, I think that I might think wow, I want to kiss this person. My lips and teeth are a little bit like, maybe, uh, maybe I don't want to kiss this person. I'm not sure, but uh, I think that I would be a good date. My friend says I would not be. I think he was just giving me shit. I'm hoping he was just giving me shit. But uh, would I be a good mother if I actually had kids, like my own? Like if I could give birth, if I had a vagina and could give birth to kids, would I be a good mother? I would say so. But that's only because I would be doing a better job than my mother did. Or I would be doing the things that I wish my mother did. I should put it that way. So, of course, that's kind of my definition of good. Uh, but yeah, no, I would still be a little bit worried, even doing that I was not necessarily a good mother in the kind of absolute sense, because I am very preoccupied, very not present. Uh, this room that I'm in is quite a mess at the moment. I don't know. I can't see what I'm pointing at right now, what I'm showing you, but it's been that way for, I don't know, like 2 or 3 weeks, and I've had the thought to clean it many times, and I just haven't done it. And this whole string of thinking that I'm in right now started because I was looking at my teeth and was thinking about the fact that I have a receding gum line from not taking very good care of my teeth. And you know, would a good mother not take good care of her teeth? If a woman doesn't take care of her teeth, then would she be a good mother? I don't know. That's what I started thinking that, but I am very preoccupied at the moment. But that's, to me, in a way, that's understandable. I can kind of forgive myself for that because of just how my life has been. Uh, just the constant search for one, the constant feeling of being dislocated, disoriented, the whole thing of being lost for so many years. Uh, I never really could like just rest or like just sit and kind of not need to fidget internally and to kind of look for things to occupy myself with. But I'm saying that because I feel like I'm going in that direction. I feel like I'm going in the direction of not having a noisy brain. For the last few years, my brain has just been nonstop noise, except for the times when I intentionally sit down and say, shut up. I don't say shut up. That's not what I say to myself, but it is a kind of, you know, sometimes I just let my brain go quiet and but I have to make the conscious effort for that because otherwise my brain will just go nonstop. I can lay in bed and have a million movies that I watch in my head, a million pretend lectures, and a million actions that I take, and all while I'm laying there, uh, which to me is not what a good mother does. I'm not saying a good mother doesn't daydream or think about things or fantasize, but to be as preoccupied as I am, I would say that's not really a good mother. I think in some way that's kind of how my mother was, and that's why uh, I would try to improve upon what she did, because I think she was just kind of absent, for lack of a better word. Like I said, she did send me away to live with my dad, and our relationship kind of dwindled to, I don't want to say nothing, but to like once a year, kind of a text on my birthday type thing. That's kind of what our relationship is at the moment. Uh, which to me, I think is kind of that. If I were to try to put myself in her shoes, I would say that's kind of she just doesn't have enough space for me, and that's kind of what it means to be preoccupied, or to be occupied is to not have any space. And that's kind of how I am. I don't really have much space for anything else or anybody else at the moment. And so, yeah. So, would I make a good mother? Right this minute, I think I could. I think I will be. I will be. Interesting. I think I would be, or will be, a better mother in the future. And just because of the trajectory that I see myself on, the way that things have changed over the last few years, and even in the last 4 months since I started taking hormones. Oh my God, my eyes. Ugh. Ah, what happened? Uh, I almost think it would be fun to have kids. Especially the more that I go through this. I think in the past I never wanted kids because I had such a low opinion of myself, because I was just kind of lost, and that, like I said before, of not wanting to give people direction and feeling like I couldn't lead the way. I For that reason, especially, I never really wanted to have kids. I felt like I would be doing them a disservice if I brought kids into this world, and uh, they had to take on my demons. But yeah, that was kind of why I was opposed to kids. And so the closer I get to this treasure, or whatever you want to call it, the more the idea of having kids does not seem quite as dreadful. I'm not going to say that I want kids, but the idea of having kids just does not seem as dreadful. It feels like, yeah, I could probably do this. Um, I wonder what it would be like to be a kid and to have a transgender mother. I think that would be a little bit of a. I mean, if you were born and didn't know any different, and you're 1, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4, 5, you had the same person in your life all these years. You're not going to grow up thinking, "What's up with this person? They're not a woman." It wouldn't be until you got out into society and that kind of thing, and your friends are saying your mom's a tranny, and you're like, "What's that?" And they're like, "That's a freak. Your mom's a freak." And then the kid comes home crying and is like, "My friends are saying you're a freak." And I would say, the first thing you need to know about other kids is they're going to talk shit about your mother. That's how they're going to insult you. They're going to call your mom fat. They're going to call her a slut. So, yeah, don't pay any attention to that. But yeah, I think that might be a little bit of a. I wonder how I would deal with it if I had grown up and I had a transgender mother. I don't know how I would. I don't know. I don't know what it would be like. After a while, I think I might start thinking it was pretty cool. I might, especially if it was unusual. Right now it is unusual, but this is a hypothetical situation. Uh, huh. I'm tempted to say that I don't want to talk so much about myself on my date, but because I am on a date with myself, I would say that I would ask you questions, but right now I'm talking to the person viewing the video, and yeah, you can't answer. So I'm going to ask myself as you. No, I'm going to ask you as myself, and I'm going to answer it. Anyways, uh, what other questions would if I were to do a study of America and say what questions would you ask on a date? What other ones would I ask, or would they ask besides what do you dream? What do you dream of your life being? I kind of went into the kids thing. I think that might be a question too. Do you want to have kids? Might be a question. Uh, Sex life, maybe. Like, what are you into sex wise? Do you like it in the butt? I don't know if that's a first date question. So this is the first date. What do you do for fun? Nothing. I don't have fun. I make videos that where I feel really uncomfortable, and I pretend to go on a date with myself. This is the most fun I've had in I don't know how long. But yeah, my life has been a life of not fun. The closest I've ever come to having fun, I would say, was from playing music. I don't mean like playing it on the stereo. I mean like playing musical instruments. That was the closest I ever came to having fun, especially on drugs. I specifically remember thinking that on a certain occasion when I was all alone. I was tripping on Robitussin in my room in my apartment in Granite Quarry. It was the shittiest apartment that I've ever had, and I didn't really have it on purpose. But there was one instance where I was tripping on Robitussin, and I was playing a African drum CD. I had bought this. This was back when I used to buy CDs, and I would go to the music store and just like every payday, I would go to the music store and buy new CDs and just try different stuff. So I bought this African drum CD by Babatunde Olatunji. If I got that right, that's amazing. And I do believe that's what I was listening to. And I had a little plastic cup like you would drink beer out of, like the little red solo cups. So I have to interrupt. It is the morning after my date with myself, and I'm editing the video, and I felt the need to kind of fill in some holes and cut out some fat. And the part about the red cup, I did not mention in the original recording. It was I was using it as a drum. Is why it was significant. I had just bought the African drum CD, and was tripping on Robitussin, sitting in my apartment by myself, I believe, and just playing along with the music. And so I go into this later, kind of about the visuals and the serpent and all that kind of stuff, and that was from me playing along with it, from me beating on this little plastic red cup like I was some kind of African drummer. So I had a little plastic cup like you would drink beer out of, like the little red solo cups, and I had it turned upside down, and I'm sitting in this shit apartment with nothing but a mattress. Basically, that was like all I had was a mattress, a little alarm clock that I used for playing CDs. I didn't even have a CD player. Well, I did. It was like the portable CD player, the little tiny thing, and I had a cassette CD to cassette adapter so that you could play CDs in the car. You put the little cassette adapter in the car stereo, and you can play your CDs. I was using that to play the CDs through the alarm clock because the alarm clock had a cassette player. So I had this cheap alarm clock with a cheap CD player in this little plastic cup in a room with nothing but a mattress, tripping on Robitussin, and with this African drum CD, and I had the time of my life. It was I got so into it is what it was, and I was just kind of like nothing else existed. The room, it kind of almost ceased to exist. Everything in my life kind of ceased to exist, and all it was the beats, and it started to, like, I was kind of seeing it in my mind's eye, and the kind of the drum beats were kind of creating shapes, and they created this kind of serpent that, as the song was coming to an end, the serpent kind of reared its head up and kind of, where's the lens? Where is it? Over here? It kind of did this thing, and then it ended, and I thought, that's the first time I've ever had fun in my life. And so that didn't happen very often, though. There were similar experiences that I had, mostly drug-induced experiences. Sometimes it was just drinking and alcohol, and going to a friend's house and playing guitar and singing and that kind of thing. With that, I would say, when it comes to having fun, that was it for me. That was pretty much it. What do I do for, like, just hobbies, interests? I studied religion for a very long time. And I had an interest in religion from the time I was a child. Uh, when I went to church, that's partly because I was just curious. I was very always kind of, I wanted to understand things. I'd like to learn about a lot of things. But there was a particular line from the Bible that I heard in church when I was very young, probably like 10 years old. The line was, small is the gate and narrow the path that leads to life, and they are few who find it. And at that time, I already knew that I wasn't really living my life. So when it said, small is the gate and narrow the path that leads to life, I already knew that there is some other kind of life. That the life I'm living is not real life. This is like a preparatory life, or a practice life, or something else. That there's another kind of life that, where I get to it, I'm going to say, I'm alive now. And I knew when it, even though it said they are few who find it, I did not doubt that I would be one of the few. I knew it. I said, I'm going to be one of the few who finds life. And I've had few experiences, a lot of them drug-induced. So people might question their validity, but just experiences that, where I saw that there is something else. Now, there is that what we see here, kind of like in the material world, is not all that there is another side. When I started, after that, I went back to reading the Bible, and because I grew up, in a Christian context, so the Bible was my first, kind of what I went back to when I wanted to kind of look into this idea of there being kind of like a spiritual world, and or whatever you want to call it, where I started to think that other people had the same experiences that I'd had. And I went from the Bible to the Tao Te Ching, which really interested me. The Tao Te Ching was such a kind of a mysterious book, because mysterious in the sense that it doesn't make sense. I mean, like, you read it, a lot of it does make sense, but some of the lines you're just like, what the fuck does that mean? Part of that, I think, is just because it's translated from Chinese, and Chinese does not translate in the kind of the word to word way that, say, like Hebrew does, or Greek. It's very, like, one symbol can mean 10 different things, and of course, I don't want to get too much into that, but the mystique of it appealed to me. I'll put it that way. And plus, it's very short. Of all the spiritual books that I've read, the Tao Te Ching is the shortest. You can read it in one day, no problem. And I went from that, and I was still reading the Bible during that time, the New Testament especially, and then I got into Buddhism. I think I bought a book called the Dhammapada, which was the teachings of the Buddha. This was all around the age of like 21. Then I got into, I think I bought the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. And then I didn't study it too much for a while. This was all around the age of 21, 22. 22, I joined the army. And while I was in the army, I did not read hardly anything until I got to Afghanistan, and there was nothing to do. And some nice person donated a bunch of books and sent them to our unit in Afghanistan, and which was not unusual. Usually it was other stuff. Usually it was stuff like toilet paper and I don't know what else, but we got this big box of books that was donated to us, and I think that was the first time that I learned about, like, esoteric stuff, because I just so happened to stumble upon the book by Dan Brown, The Da Vinci Code, which was at that time, the most interesting book that I had read. And so when I got out of the army, when I came back from Afghanistan, I was still very much kind of enthralled by that, and I think that was when I started learning about Gnosticism. I may have learned about Gnosticism before the army, I'm not sure, but that's when I started learning about Gnosticism. And kind of that was also interesting, because the thing with Gnosticism was that the Gnostic Gospels were kind of hidden, or I shouldn't say hidden, but they were discovered by accident, apparently, and if they had not, there were only one copy of those Gospels, I believe, and if they had not been discovered, no one would have known about them. And they were basically, the Gnostic Gospels are Gospels that were not included in the Bible. The Gospel of Thomas. There was another Gospel of John that was different from the one in the Bible. The Gospel of Mary. The Gospel of Judas. And they are not the same as the Gospels in the Bible. And I mean, they're not, they don't tell this, I don't want to say they tell a different story, because most of them don't even tell stories. The Gospel of Thomas is all sayings. It's just nothing but Jesus' sayings. But he does say things in the Gnostic Gospels that he does not say in the New Testament. But that's not contradictory stuff. A lot of it is supplementary. Maybe, I don't know. But what does he say? To the dancer belongs the universe. To the dancer belongs the universe. Was one of his quotes, I believe, in the Gospel of John. The Secret Gospel of John, I think is what it's called. And so it was all interesting stuff. I was just kind of like, to me, that was like the coolest thing I had ever discovered. And that also confirmed for me that other people had experiences like mine. And so that it just kept on going. I went from Gnosticism to what did I go to next? I don't even remember. Sufism, Kabbalah, Freemasonry, alchemy. I went through all that stuff. I did when I say I went through it. Some of that I just kind of read enough about it just to kind of get a basic idea of what it was. Like Kabbalah, I did nothing in depth in Kabbalah. I read enough about it just to kind of understand what it is. With Freemasonry, I think with Freemasonry was the one where I kind of went more in depth than in any other school at that time, and did even mythology. I was very interested in ancient myths. Once I realized that a lot of them were not just like fairy tales, but actual basic religious allegories about the inner life more than the outer life. And so that was I don't know how many years it was. If I were to count, say 18, if you count from when I started at 18, this wasn't consistent. It wasn't like I read a religious book every day or even every month. But from the time I was 18 until about the time I was until right about the time that I discovered that I was trans. So right around maybe 38. So it was probably almost, what was that, 20 years? I would say that I studied religion. And when I say religion, I basically mean all religions. And I don't mean that as every religion. I shouldn't say it that way. But I studied a lot. Even Hinduism, Islam, Zen, which is part of Buddhism, and all that stuff. And I was soaking it up like a sponge. And it that changed my life. That took me in a direction that I didn't really think that I would ever go. Prior to that, like when I was 18, I did not think that I would get into a lot of the things that I was getting into, as far as like just ideas that I was coming upon. Like there was one idea that I really liked that was from Freemasonry. I don't want to say it was their idea, but it was from a Masonic text, and it basically argued that the world, like the earth, not the world of humanity, not the street lights and all that kind of stuff, and the drugs and the drama. That could be part of it too, but they basically argued that like nature, the universe, the stars, the trees, the water, that all of that is God's Bible. That is how God speaks to us for people who don't have the ears to hear and eyes to see. And I think that stuff like that. Well, I cannot think right now. I can't think of another example of something that really kind of stuck out as super interesting. But that just changed my life. It changed my perspective. For one, I started thinking that everybody that I'm talking to is potentially Jesus, which some people might think that's crazy. That to me, that is one of the points that the Bible makes that I didn't quite catch until I started studying esoteric stuff, and I feel like that perspective that everybody that I'm talking to is potentially Jesus, that changed my perspective on things, and so that is one of my interests. The arts, painting, music, dancing. These are all part of my interests. I don't want to go too much into that because I kind of feel like that's more like, you already know about the arts. You've already seen paintings and movies and stuff like that. But I would add on top of that that the arts to me are just as much a part of the spiritual path as anything else. I mean, there are people who have spiritual practices, meditative practices, contemplative, and uh, chanting and prayers and stuff like that. But to me, the arts are, for in my own experience, I would say that art has kind of propelled me further than, so like meditating. Uh, Art is its own type of meditation. For me, there have been times in my life where I was never more in the moment than I was when I was drawing. And but it's not just about being in the moment. When I am, because it's when I'm creating, the act of bringing something out of me makes me grow. If that makes sense, it's like God gave me a gift, which I'm supposed to give to the world. But I'm not losing things by giving it to the world. I'm actually gaining things by giving it to the world. It's like every time I give something, it's like I get richer by giving it. And so that, but it's not just that. Well, yeah, I guess it is kind of just that, but it's not. That didn't explain it well, I guess is the way what I mean to say. But that's, I guess, as much as I need to explain at the moment, because this I don't want this date to be 5 hours of me talking about spirituality and art. Um, so I just had to go back and watch the whole, like, what was that, 45 minutes, 50 minutes of the first part of my date, because the I don't know what happened, but the thing stopped recording, and I wasn't sure where it stopped, so I had to go back. And the app that I watch videos on this, I'm using a tablet for whatever reason. I don't know how to get it to skip ahead in the video, and the video was, like I said, like 45 minutes to 50 minutes, I think, and so I had to watch the whole thing through from beginning to end to figure out where I was at. But I kind of wanted to watch the whole thing too. Uh, so yeah, I don't want to spend 5 hours talking about spirituality and art. Um, so now I'm kind of tired after all that. It was a nice video to watch. I was very kind of impressed. The one thing I noticed, and I'm noticing it now as I'm making this video, is that my eyes are kind of constantly all over the place, like which doesn't bother me too much. I think it's kind of cute sometimes, but I see it as kind of a sign that I'm not solid in who I am. If that makes sense. But this is my date. This is not a time to uh, self pity or any of that stuff. I may need to go wash my eyes out, but yeah. So it is getting late. The date is getting late, and I am a little bit tired. uh, so what do you want to see? I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to me, and I'm wondering what it is that you want to see. Because you are here with me. can I be a strong woman? I think it's possible. I think it would surprise me. I think I would be shocked. I think that I would probably cry if I could see myself as someone who is strong. And I don't think that I'm not strong necessarily, considering some of the stuff that I've gone through. But I do feel very unsteady, if that makes sense. I'm like a ship that's just kind of all over the place. Like I don't really, I'm not staying the course. Um, because I think if I were going to date me, I would want me to be a strong woman. I wouldn't want to have to be my support or anything like that. And I'm not saying I don't want to support people, or I don't think, or that people shouldn't support other people. That's not what I'm saying. But yeah, that is kind of what I would want. I would want someone who can kind of stand on their own 2 feet, and I don't think it's just. I think it's partly being tired now that my eyes are itching. I think it's mostly being tired. I think it's also from just rubbing my eyes with dirty hands. So, what else is there for this date? Uh, not to the point of offering a kiss yet. Um, I'm scratching my nuts at the moment. I'm sure there's an idea that will come from that. Because I am on a date right now with what I see as a woman with nuts. And I actually like that idea. I can sometimes see in myself the kind of woman with nuts that I would want to go on a date with. And I think it would be cool to be that woman. And I think that I would feel like I was God's gift to the world. uh, uh, as far as religion goes, I mean, religion has a lot to say about not a lot to say, but religion certainly has something to say about trans. Uh, Maybe not all religions. Christianity does. Uh, the Mormons do. I actually went to a Mormon church uh, around the time that I was thinking that I was trans. They invited me to go, and I said I will go if I can dress as a woman at your church or your temple or whatever it's called. And they agreed. It was two young girls who were missionaries in the apartment complex where I lived, and an older gentleman who after a while of talking to me, the girls kind of realized that they needed a little bit of assistance. So they brought this older gentleman with them after a while, and I think I got off track. But anyways, they invited me, and I was expecting to just basically be told that I'm a sinner, that I am whatever, and I'm going to hell and all that kind of stuff. But they were super nice, the whole church. Nobody said anything mean to me. The only thing that they said that made me not want to go back was just that what I was doing was they didn't use the word wrong. I think, but what they said was that you were born, what you were born as is what you were before you were born. And their belief is that all souls were with God before they come into existence. And so if you came into existence as a male, that means you were male when you were with God, because the souls are male and female. Basically, they were denying the whole transgender argument because, man, because by their argument, I'm not a woman on the inside, I'm a man on the inside, right? Because my soul itself is a man. And so that's not mean, but I also don't want to go to a place like that. I don't want to go to a place where their entire cosmology or theology or whatever you want to call it is kind of set against me. Of course, it's not their entire theology, but yeah. So, but I'm also a little bit antisocial, so I didn't go back. But so yeah. So what was my point though? That from what is my religious perspective on trans, I don't understand what trans is. I don't really know what it means. I know the basic idea that being trans, like for me, would mean being a woman in a man's body. That's kind of the basic idea. And when I look at myself, I feel like that's what I see. I don't have any deep explanation from looking at myself other than that I see a woman. I mean, I literally like I feel like I look like a woman. I don't mean that I pass. So I don't understand trans. I don't. I could not explain it. Is it my brain? Do I have a woman's brain? Is that what that means? What is the difference between a woman's brain and a man's brain? Is it just the hormones? I always thought it was just hormones. I thought women acted differently from men because they had, like estrogen pumping through their brains, just like men have But of course, I don't know what testosterone does to the brain. I know that men are horny and aggressive and that kind of thing, but is that all from the brain? These are things I don't really understand. So, but my religious perspective, uh, I believe that God has a place for trans, and I kind of hesitate to say that, and I am hesitating to say that because there's two parts of trans. There are trans women and there are trans men, and I don't feel quite the same way about trans men that I do about trans women. Now, there are also two parts to the purpose of trans from my perspective as far as religion goes. One is the purpose of just transition in general. I do feel like there is, for me, as far as like spiritual paths go, like I was talking about like art and spiritual paths before, the gender transition for me is also a kind of spiritual thing, and just going through the transition because uh, a woman who is born woman can't know what it's like to live 30 years as a man. I mean, unless they were dressed as a boy for their first 30 years of their life. I mean, that sounds a little bit just impossible, but just to go through this transition, to me, I would say that I'm not gonna say that God wanted me to do this for any benefit to myself, that there was some learning experience that God intended for me when uh, in all this. But if God does mean for it to be that way, then I would say that there is a kind of benefit from it, and whether God meant for it to happen or not, really. But so it could be that God did mean for it to happen, but just in the transition. Uh, but then there's the other part that I was getting at before of, like, say, a man with a vagina and a woman with a penis. Now, given things that I've experienced in the last 4 months from taking hormones, uh, uh, seeing kind of what my sexuality is, or what I kind of am inclined towards, because I have not had a sex life. It's probably something to mention on a first date. Uh, I don't mean that I'm a virgin. I basically mean that I've had sexual experiences that made me not want to have sexual experiences. I've had many sexual experiences in my life. I don't know how many. Uh, Not quite as many as the average person, probably. Like, I've only, as far as girls go, I've probably only had 6 partners uh, sexually, and with men, maybe 5. And with them, it wasn't even like anal sex, it was just oral sex. And it was always one night stands with men. But there was, whether it was men or women, I was never quite at home. I was never quite satisfied. And I don't mean to say that they didn't satisfy me, like they were bad lovers. That's not what I'm saying at all. Because it probably would not have mattered how good or bad they were. I mean, you could have gotten like the most professional tantric practitioner, on the planet. Of course, I have no idea what I'm talking about, and I would have felt the same way, because it was what was going on inside me that kind of caused me not to be satisfied, to feel anxious and all that kind of stuff. And after all that, once I started the gender exploration, and especially once I started the hormones and I started getting breast growth, you see that stuff like that. When I masturbate now, I have experiences that are more validating than anything that I've had before in the past. Where I feel like this is kind of what I want to see. I really like the idea of being a woman with a penis, and the way that I feel about it makes me feel like God has a place for me, that God actually wants women with penises to be in the world. And I went through this in my Women with a Penis video, but since we're on a first date, maybe I don't. You haven't watched that yet, and uh, it does feel like there is a purpose to it, and I don't want to smack men in the face, but there are many times when I look at women in my life and they do not seem happy, and they seem very mm, unsatisfied, dissatisfied with their life. I especially feel it then, and I feel like, from my own perspective, I'm not going to say that I am a woman, but I feel like, as far as like what I want in relationships and in life, one of the things that I want is connection. And I think that this is more of a woman thing, to want connection more than anything else. And I think that when women date men, a lot of the times they are starved for connection, that men are not very good at connection, that they're in some cases quite bad at it. And I think this is largely where a woman with a penis comes in. I'm not saying all women want that kind of connection. I think a lot of women are kind of happy to be with a man who is callous and tough and that kind of stuff. But I think not all women are, especially women who came from rough childhoods, never felt loved, and they are really unsure of themselves. A lot of them don't really want to be dating a guy who is just has no empathy whatsoever. Uh, it's a bad way to put it, but yeah, I do feel like there's a place. I've spent my entire life feeling out of place, and not only do I feel more in place seeing myself as a woman, but I actually feel like I'm in some way serving my purpose in a way when I picture myself as a woman with a penis with other women, even with men sometimes too, but it's not quite as often. Here lately, my mind has been mostly on women, and I think that's uh, partly because I've kind of grieved over my relationship with women. My relationship with my mother was pitiful, and I've kind of always wanted the mother, but that's not necessarily why I want a relationship with women. I think I just want a relationship with women. From the time I was a kid, that was pretty much what I wanted, was a woman in my life. And I've struggled with that, especially living as a man, because it's very difficult for a man to find a relationship with a woman that's not like a boyfriend girlfriend relationship or a marriage relationship. I mean, I met women who stopped talking to me because I wouldn't marry them, and or I had to stop talking to them because they got so upset when I said that I wouldn't marry them, and so it was almost impossible. It felt like it was impossible for me to find the relationship with women that I wanted. But when I see myself as a woman, it kind of changes that, and it's not so much that I think, well, now they'll be open to having that relationship with me. It's more now that I kind of have a better idea of the relationship that I want, and so so my mind now, because of that, I think craving for a relationship with a woman. And I think one of the reasons that I want a relationship with a woman is like what I just said, that I feel like women are better at connection than men are, and what I want is the connection. And so women right now are more in my mind than, I don't want to say than ever, but than they have been in a while. And maybe I'll date a guy here pretty soon, maybe in the next year or so. Maybe I'll be dating a guy. But right now, I kind of feel like that part of me that has always wanted a relationship with a woman is kind of really, kind of kicking and screaming, and so I've been thinking about that. And when I think about it, and when I see myself as a woman, like when I'm looking at myself now, I feel like I see something that I did not see in the past, but I always kind of wanted. And but it does feel like now there is kind of a relationship that is possible that I could not have had before. And I could possibly have that relationship even as a female, like a natural born female with a vagina. Uh, to have that connection, I don't know that the penis has anything to do with it. But as far as sex goes, maybe sex is part of connection. Maybe sex is the way to connection. I don't know, but the masturbation experiences that I've had lately have kind of made me feel like I definitely want to be having some romantic sexual relationships with women. Uh, uh, and yeah, that was to the question of my religious view of trans, and but that is the way I feel about it. Makes me feel like I said, like God. This was God's intention, is to have women with a penis in the world, because they can be a kind of gap filler, for lack of a better word. Uh, you know, uh, because it's not necessarily the vagina that needs to be filled, right? Uh, and I don't want to say that I can fill the hole in somebody's heart, but that is kind of what I'm saying. And so, yeah, I do, because if you think about what people talk about religion, they talk about love, and I'm sure that men and women love each other. I'm sure it happens. You know, this wig, look at that. But even now, like if I like when I look at myself and I think of dating myself as a woman with a penis, I think that's probably the closest to love that I could possibly come. Uh, so, but wow. That may sound a little bit narcissistic, but after all, I am on a date with myself. So, where are we at? 30, almost 30 minutes. The first one was 50. So we're almost at an hour and 20 minutes. My back is killing me. Oh. Uh, well, hopefully I answered all your questions. I'm wondering right now, am I talking to one person in particular or like three or four? I'm not entirely sure. I'm on a date with myself, but I cannot help but think about other people who would be watching this and what they would think. And there are some who kind of stuck in my head at the moment. Not just one in particular, but also others. But because I do want to date, not with me. I do want to date with someone else. And dating has never really been my thing. In the past, when I dated women, I don't think I ever dated them sober. I think that I remember dating one girl, and all we did was go to bars and do drugs. And I don't think I did drugs with her. No, I did. And that was pretty much it. We would go home sometimes together, and not always. I think she stayed with me for quite a bit, but she did not live in my apartment. She had her own place, but she did spend the night quite a bit. But just drugs, drinking. That was kind of what it was to date. There was no relationship building. There was no going on a date, like going to a restaurant and just sitting and having dinner and talking. It was, like I said, going to a bar, talking to other people, drinking beer, that kind of thing, which is not, to me, you can't build a relationship that way. I don't have relationships with any of the people that I met at bars. My Facebook friends are part family, part friends that I met online through like discussion groups, part people that I know from the area, like in Salisbury, and part people that I met at bars in Salisbury. And quite a large bulk, I think, are people who I met at bars. Even though we're still Facebook friends, I don't really have a relationship with any of them. And in my experience, that is how it is with people that go to bars. Which is one of the reasons why I don't go to bars anymore. And it just seems like it's difficult to meet the kind of person that you can have like a healthy relationship with. And I'm playing with my boob right now. My nipples are like really a little bit stiff. It's like I have erect nipples, which is, I've had erect nipples as a guy, but not quite like this. I mean, this feels a little bit weird. It's a little bit tender. My nipples were sore for like 2 months straight, and right now they're feeling a little bit. This never felt that way before, but I've never rubbed it like this. Yeah, relationships. A healthy relationship. I would say that I've not had a healthy relationship in my life. As by like just going out. The It was not until I moved to Atlanta that I started to find healthy relationships, and that was through going to one of my favorite places to go in Atlanta was the Sufi group, and to talk to Sufi people. And for whatever reason, they seem to be the most, as far as like healthy relationships go, they provided me with the most. The people that I talked to, two Sufi teachers that I talked to, seem to just have this ability to, when I talk to them, just make me feel a way that I don't feel talking to other people. But connections, relationships. It was not until I moved to Atlanta that I felt like I had what I felt like were healthy relationships. And so that was it was 2016. It's 2021. So in the last 5 years is when I first kind of started on this path to trying to form healthy relationships with people. And I've been doing that quite a bit the last week. I have reached out to a few people in the last week, and am trying to establish some kind of relationship. And I do emphasis on some kind, not a particular kind. It's just like I see these people as people who I want to I don't know, it's like I care about them. And I kind of want to be involved, I guess is the way to put it, in their life. And so, yeah, that is one of the things that of all the things that I've talked about, like religion, art, What else did I talk about? I don't know. But I think connection, in some way, is first and foremost. It is before religion. I'm almost kind of tempted to say it's before art, but that art is my. I don't know if I can say that. But yeah, in that I've never really had a connection, so it's difficult to put that in front of art. Maybe if I had a connection, maybe I would say that connection is the king. Uh, but uh, but yeah, connection is. I've wanted it since I was a child, and I feel like not having it has made my life very poor and very pointless. And but the first connection is always the one with myself, which is why I'm on a date with myself. So, ow, my finger is really sore from holding this thing. I've been holding it in the same hand for how many hours? Like 30 hours, I think I've been making this video. This date lasted 30 hours. So we're going to bed together. Yeah. I'm a cheap date. Easy date. You're going to bed with me. I need to go at least rinse my mouth out. Hello. 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 Hello.